Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Niblink. I am the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, I'm going to go over the most puzzling players league wide as submitted by the Apples and Genos Discord server. Let's get it. All right, welcome on in. We've got people in the comments already. We had people in the comments already yesterday when I first posted the stream. Brian was in here. Love the show. Subscribe, active follower. Keep doing God's work. Quick question. Can you take a look at Spurgeon's metrics? Worth the ad. Power play 1 now over Faber. Thanks again. We've got the Jared Spurgeon look, I guess you could call it, up at 4th on the docket. So we're definitely going to get to some Jared Spurgeon talk here. Michael says, hands down the best fruit-based fantasy hockey podcast out there. Let's get to biz. As we do, Nick Kipro said tonight's a must-win for the Rangers. Not going so well. 2-0 Devils. Just started the second there. CG, great pod, a Jensen stream for the win. Yes, if you haven't checked out the flagship pod yet, that Blake and I did together. I won a week because of a Nick Jensen stream, and that's something that can happen. So just keep that in your back pocket. I've dug more into the reasons for why I would do such an outlandish thing in that pod. So you can check that out if you want to. But yeah, Nick Jensen winning me weeks in the year of our Lord 2024. Who would have thought? CG also hates Prime. I have the game on the side here on my phone. 0-0 Chicago Toronto. Looks like Toronto's come out to play, which is pretty good, I guess, even against the Blackhawks team. They'll need to because Arvid Soderblom has had their numbers. So we'll see if they're able to keep things going. Upper lip looking nice and toasty still. Thank you very much. I try to keep things under control. CJ, best fourth/final D-man in 12-team points league. Orlov, Hughes, Luke Hughes, that is. Letang, Oyel, Burns, or Provorov. That's an interesting question. I think I'm going Letang there. Luke Hughes has been coming on as of late, so that has some interest for me. But I think it's still Letang. Letang had a nice game. Hopefully that's a slump buster for him. All these guys, right, are like second power play, if any power play, and so I think I'll take Letang there. Steve Larini Monday, baby. That's right. We got 3 games on the docket in the NHL, which is good enough. Like, that'll get the job done. That'll scratch the itch, right? BB Stars, somebody hand over the smelling salts. Let's go. All right, let's get to biz. I love the energy. Steve Larini, you guys talked about Krug on the weekend episode. Still like him better than Broberg. Well, Krug's not playing, but Broberg is of interest. The thing with Broberg, right, is that we don't have like a full sample size yet with Philip Broberg, especially in St. Louis, right? It was encouraging that I came in, and I think he played like 24 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. This is something that's easily verifiable. I'm not sure why I'm just speaking without checking, but I can definitely do that. Broberg played, click the link, 24:08, 3 shots on goal and 1 hit in his return to the lineup. I think that Broberg is potentially of interest, if only for the amount of time that he'll spend on the ice. Obviously had a bit of a hot start there in St. Louis, was definitely higher up on some of the luck metrics in the early going. Toronto just scored. I have to see who that was. But yeah, Broberg, it's a guy that probably you're not into unless it's power play 1 for Broberg. Basically, I'm into Justin Falk, not into Broberg yet, but I could be convinced if he got there. Looks like a feed to Matthews, and Matthews scores. Beautiful. Nice stuff. Good to see Matthews back and scoring goals. Had 2 assists in the return. Not always something that Matthews has been known for. Looks like he tucked it 5-hole. Very nice. Solar Facade. Hey, cheers, mate. Cheers to you. Tron Dave's in your hashtag Zero-G. Appreciate you. Steve says you guys talked about Falk on the weekend. Better than Broberg. Yeah, if only for the power play one that I mentioned there. Leadbang, A&G, best in the biz. Appreciate you being here. Solar Facade question, is Gaudette for real? Answer, no. Yeah, I can put his stuff in here, but no, I'm pretty confident that Adam Gaudette is not for real. Underlying numbers are not too great except for the on-ice stuff. Still just 12 and a half minutes a night on the season, averaging just under 11. To get to this 46-point pace, he's had to have a 93% IPP and a 36% shooting percentage. Yeah, just complete unbelievable luck metrics in the early going for Adam Gaudette, and that's why I think he's gotten to where he's gotten to. Steve says, good evening, Nate. Would you rather have rest of the season Genther or Marchenko? That is a tough one. We can put both of these guys in here and compare side by side. Let's do that for a moment. Dylan Genther and Kirill Marchenko. Both of these guys looking good in recent going. Marchenko's role is more, it's less in doubt, I guess, is what I'd say, right? The minutes are better right now. They have been throughout the season, really. Genther has had some big minute games, but more commonly has had less minutes. You can see it, almost 2 minutes more per game for Marchenko. I think that Genther might actually be a slightly more talented player, have more potential, but I think that Marchenko is going to get more opportunity, and so that's kind of the situation that you're kind of weighing. If Genther got more opportunity, if you feel kind of convicted that Genther will get more opportunity in terms of just total time on ice, especially 5v5 as the season progresses, then I could see the argument for Genther over Marchenko. But I think at this moment, I would take Marchenko over Genther rest of season. Yeah, just if you're doing like a straight points bet, who scores more points rest of the season, I think I would take Marchenko, but with the big caveat that I do think Genther has more upside. They both have great upside. I just think Genther's is like sky high. If he got 20 minutes a night, this could be a guy who could really, really go off. Leadbang, resident Sharks fan here. Just need to know how real Macklin is right now. You're going to have to excuse me a little bit on the stream. I'm fighting off a cold right now. I'm going to have to mute myself and cough a few times throughout, but we'll get through it together. If you hear my voice go super scratchy for a minute and then a long pause, that's what's happening. But yeah, Macklin Celebrini is for real, no doubt. The minutes are really impressive to me. I talked about Celebrini actually with Blake on the flagship show, so you can go back and check that one out. But the Coles notes is I'm into Celebrini. I thought that with lower minutes, he was potentially in line for a 30 plus goal, 65-point season. He's getting way more minutes than I was anticipating, at least in the early going here, and he seems fully capable of doing it. I had him at 17 and a half minutes average time on ice, and I think he's closer to 20 as average time on ice on the season so far. So obviously you can do the math. That's going to improve your chances of outscoring my projection for him. That being said, he's a rookie. All rookies, no matter how high their pedigree, do tend to go through hot and cold stretches throughout the course of a season. And so I am kind of baking in that possibility as well, that Celebrini has, a 10 or 20 game probably not a 20-game stretch. I think he's better than that, but a 10-game stretch perhaps where things don't go his way and he takes a little bit longer than, maybe a bit more of a seasoned veteran would to right the ship and get things back on course. That being said, I'm very excited about what Celebrini's doing. I think 70 points should be your expectation as a point pace rest of season. 35 goals, 70 points, I think is well within the wheelhouse for Macklin Celebrini. Isaac asks, Voronkov legit? I think Voronkov is probably going to be one of these guys who's a little bit more streaky depending on who he's playing with, these kind of things. He's definitely capable of getting hot and being hot for, a little bit of time. I definitely don't think that it's impossible that he could sustain. Best case scenario, yeah, best case scenario, he stays on the line with Monahan Marchenko for, like, I don't know, say 70% of the rest of the season. He's on that line. In that scenario, and he's getting, 16 and a half minutes a night, 17 minutes a night, I could see him in the 55 to 60 point range, but that's probably your best case scenario for a guy like Dmitry Voronkov, unless he takes another step from where he's at currently. CJ says, thank you. Steve clarifying he meant Falk, not Krug. That makes sense. CJ also asked, best rest of the season, 12-team points league, Bennett, Fiala, RNH, Lindholm, or Rust? Interesting one for sure. Normally I would say Fiala without a doubt here, but it's been a weird season. I still think that I'm likely going to stay there with Fiala, but I'm not feeling super confident about that take at the moment. Next up, if you don't feel confident in Fiala, similar to me, Rust and RNH are kind of right there in the next tier for me. Yeah, I think that I would probably go RNH because I feel like that's the safest floor. If you have a little bit more bangers waiting, maybe you lean a little bit more toward Rust. If you have more value for shots on goal, Rust does that more than RNH does. So, yeah, you can kind of figure out the exact weighting and what works best for you there. But I think I would go Fiala first. I'm gonna believe in the player, basically, in the body of work to this point. Then I'd go RNH. Then I'd go Rust. Got offered Genther for Stamkos rest of season, points only league. Am I crazy or am I winning that one? Rest of season in points only, Genther for Stamkos. I think I'm still taking Stamkos there. It's tough. It is very tough because Genther, like I said, does have that extreme upside, but probably needs more minutes to sustain it. Steven Stamkos, we know what he can do. He hasn't really shown a lot of signs of slowing down. Minutes are a little bit less than I'd like in this last little stretch. A little bit more on the season. Underlying metrics are not bad. IPP's low. On-ice shooting percentage low for Stamkos. Yeah, I think I'm still going Stamkos, but it's definitely closer than anyone would have thought at the beginning of the season. Toronto Dave saying, go Leafs, go. Let's go. BB Stars mentioning Utah playoff schedule is great. Steve saying thanks. That's a name that I'm not going to try to pronounce, asking what's up with Gostisbehere. Power play one, but third pairing. Also, his ice time isn't great, but he's putting up solid numbers. Cats League. Yeah, so Gostisbehere is one of those guys. I think like you just have to accept the fact that Shane Gostisbehere is going to have stretches throughout the season where he looks incredible and stretches throughout the season where you're like, how can I roster this guy? That being said, on the season, first in the league amongst all defensemen, Corsi 4/60 and scoring chances 4/60. That is because he skates, 19 minutes a night, and a good chunk of that comes on the power play and on the Canes power play, which has been popping to start the season. He looks relatively sustainable, honestly, and the underlying numbers probably a touch high, but not too much, and he's on a 17 goal, 65 point pace. Yeah, I think it's possible that he sustains like a 60-point pace on the season, but I do think that he's definitely going to have at least one, if not multiple stretches throughout the rest of the season where you're like, man, Gostisbehere's got me one assist in the last 7 games. What am I doing rostering this guy? He's not even getting minutes. And if you're willing to hold him through all that, then I think your end of season results will look pretty good. But that is kind of the plus and the minus of rostering Shane Gostisbehere. Jordan Nelson, Ghost was brought in to play sheltered minutes, QB the power play. This is just who he is. Tend to agree. I will say, Shane Gostisbehere, one of the best power play quarterbacks in the league, though. Like, he legitimately does one thing very, very well. Chichi Mini, hey Nate, keep up the good work. Somebody just dropped Paterka in my league. Should I drop Elias Lindholm for him? Yes, you should. Unequivocally, yes, you should. Jordan says, anything to get Lindholm off your team? Lindholm versus Backlund. Probably sticking with Lindholm there. Backlund will have some hot stretches where you're like, man, I should be rostering Backlund over Lindholm, but I think when you tally up all the points at the end of the year, Lindholm probably has more. Rangers' new top line sticks. I mean, no. Most likely no. Yeah, the Hedel, Lafreniere, Panarin situation. I mean, is it working tonight? No. So, yeah, I can't see it lasting personally. I would love to see it last. I love Philip Hedel, the macro P, as Blake would call him. Yeah, I'd love to see it, but I can't imagine that this sticks forever. They're trying everything and anything there with the Rangers, and it's still not working so far. Maybe they come back in this game and Hedel has 2 goals assisted by Panarin, and then it sticks. But they're going to need something to change here. SK93 thoughts on Slavkovsky. Do you think he'll pick it up, or is he a drop in a 12-team bangers league? He's obviously a little bit better in a bangers league. But yeah, it has been a rough road with Yuri Slafkovsky. Even the minutes have been down as of late. Still does throw hits, but the shots are like not there. You have to go back to November 2nd to find a game in which Slafkovsky fired at least 3 shots. That is pretty terrible, pretty unequivocally terrible. So that's tough to take from a guy like Slafkovsky. I'm not writing off the player, but I do think you can drop him at this exact moment. Michael says, "How are you doing in the Content Creators League, and who are your current goalies in that league?" Yeah, that's a fun story. So we can look at that league if we want to. Let me pull it up. I can put it over on the screen. Let's check out these standings in the Content Creators League, shall we? Bring this over. Does that show up? Yeah, it shows up. So I'm in 8th in the Content Creators League, but curiously, if you'll check out the points for, turns out I have the most points for in this league by a decent margin. Yeah, I forget. You can't see it. So for some reason, you can only see it on the app, but the points against, I have like 200 or 300 more points against than anybody else in the league. Josh actually has the second most points against. So yeah. It's just one of those things. This similar thing happened to me in this league last year. I was doing really well in points for, but the win loss wasn't quite there in the early going. We'll get back there, but yeah, it's been a bit frustrating. I've been getting a lot of people's best week of the season, and yeah, it happens. Still pretty early, lots of time to get up there. Yeah, it's just frustrating, right? To feel like you're playing well, you're putting up points, and you're just not getting W's at the end of it. But we'll get there. This is very easily the league that my rank is the worst in. Honestly, like team might be the best of all my leagues. Obviously, scoring lots of points relative to everybody else, so feel good about that. Currently, my goalies in the league. That was the other question. So I dropped everybody except for Merzlikins. There's some other guys that I might pick up later in the week. Just there's nobody that I had to have here for Monday night, so I was thinking like I'll get the games here from Vlasic and Jamie Benn, Logan Stankoven. Yeah, just guys that I'll get the games out of here first and then make a decision on who I need to drop to fit in some more goalie starts later in the week. This is a league that gives you more points for goalie starts than some of my others, so there is that as well. But yeah, that's the situation in the Content Creators League for now. Zach says, drop JJ for Kent Johnson for rest of season. Limited ads in category league. Not sure if Kent can keep this up with low shots. I wouldn't. I'd keep JJ Peterka there, especially in limited ads. Best rest of season, Stolars, Waller, Thompson. That feels like predicting goalie performance, which is something I try to be not in the business of at all times. Yeah, I honestly don't feel like I have a great take on that. Wall's been playing the best as of late. Um, I guess I would just go with Wall. Thompson maybe you could argue that Thompson has the best chance to actually take over the net in Washington. That's possible as well. Yeah, I feel like that's a 3-way coin flip if that's even possible. Kreider for Ehlers trade. Who wins a trade in fantasy and real world? Interesting. Real world, I think it's based on what you're looking for. If you're just looking for dynamic offense, then Ehlers is clearly in a world above what Kreider can bring. If you're looking for, like a playoff style player who can bring leadership and all the rest of it, then Chris Kreider obviously does that in spades. So I could see it just on, just in the basis of a real world trade. For fantasy purposes, I'm a little bit worried about Kreider's injury that apparently he's been playing through and then missed some time with, and I'm not sure that it's necessarily going to be better, like fully better. A little bit worried about that. I think I'd take Ehlers there, but yeah, I think it's a reasonable trade in any direction. Any news on Landeskog? I haven't seen anything recently. It seems like yeah, he's still quite a ways away. Chris Nelson, who's the longer term hold, DeBrusk or Stamkos? Thinking about trying to package one of them with Zellweger to get Kempe or Svechnikov. Definitely Stamkos there for me. DeBrusk is hot right now, but yeah, there's a pretty good chance that he gets demoted again down the lineup at some point. DeBrusk hasn't been able to stay consistently hot for more than, I don't know, 15, 20 games at any point in his career so far. Maybe that happens for the first time in Vancouver, but I think you have to bet against it. I think you have to go with the established player in Stamkos. Chichi, any thoughts on Dylan Strome rest of season? Yeah, Strome's going to fall off for sure. That said, he's been playing terrific. I don't want to take anything away from the player, but yeah, 6 points, last five. Underlying metrics are like not great, but better on the on ice. That's typical of the type of player he is. 27 goal, 116 point pace. Crazy stuff. 76% IPP. It's maybe a touch high, but not too crazy. The shooting percentage is definitely too high, and the on ice shooting percentage is insane. Yeah, I think he can do 70 to 75 points. I think that's possible with this iteration of the Capitals, but I don't think you can reasonably expect Dylan Strome to get more than a point per game on the season, at least as a point pace from here on out, right? Like with the start that he's had, maybe he gets a point per game when we tally it up at the end of the year, but as a point pace from here on out, which is really all we should care about for fantasy, yeah, I think that would be my expectation moving forward. Michael, I'm surprised to you dropping Mrazek in Creators League. Did you see the save he made in Columbus last night? Insane. Yeah. So Mrazek, like, he wasn't going to play for me until Wednesday. He'll be off waivers by then. Maybe I pick him back up. That's definitely a possibility. I'm just not tied to any of these goalies long term. Never will be. A lot of these other managers are tied to their goalies, and so I've been, rotating in and out. Mrazek, Merzlikins, Montembeault, all these guys throughout. Obviously, I've been able to get the most points for in the early going, despite not actually getting wins. So I think it's been working really well for me. So yeah, I feel like I'm not really losing anything. I've dropped Mrazek probably once or twice, maybe 3 times already in this league so far. So yeah. Chris Nelson, also Art Ross Colton returning this week. Yes, we will need to talk about that for sure. Last one's late to the show. Hopefully didn't miss too much. Let's pray they put Colton back on the top line, top power play. Prayers up. Let's go. Ross cameo Colton. All right, we got to get into the list here. JJ Peterka leading things off, the most requested player by the Apples and Geos Discord server so far. 0 points in his last five. Blake and I did talk about Peterka in the flagship show, so definitely you can check that out. 20 minutes a night. They are, playing with the lines. He, in the latest tweet I saw, was playing on the second line with Cousins and Zach Benson. Obviously not where you want him to be, but I still think that Peterka, I know that this doesn't look terrific. The shots have gone away a little bit, but 20 minutes a night and the Corsi 4 being super high, that's all still there. I think the shots come back. This is kind of the pace that I estimated for him, 26 goals, 60-point pace. And I kind of feel like he's going to get there one way or the other. I think he'll probably shoot more a little bit later. And yeah, I'm still in on JJ Peterka. One note on Peterka, actually, Buffalo does have basically the best schedule next week. So not this week, but next week. They play Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, heavy day, but also Sunday. So they got 3 off nights and 4 games played. So if anything, Peterka is going to be like a hot streamer next week. And so it's a great time. If somebody's dropping him, you pick him up for next week. And then you get him for a stream. And if he's totally playing terrible, he gets demoted further down the lineup or what have you, then sure, you can drop him again. But he's still worth a stream at the very, very least. I think that Peterka is going to be fine rest of the season. I would comfortably project him for 25 to 30 goals, 60 to 65 points. Olen Zellweger, next up, 2 assists in his last 5 games here, 19.5 minutes time on ice, 19th shots per 60, 19th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 17th in both Corsi for and on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Was hot, has now gone a little bit cold, I guess you would say, on pace, for 15 goals, 37 points on the season. 42% IPP, 7.7% shooting percentage, and 9.6% on ice shooting percentage. I honestly think he has a little bit more to give there, both in the IPP and the on ice shooting percentage. And so I'm still into Zellweger. Underlying stats still look really good. I think, it's definitely possible with how young this player is that, and, just Anaheim's situation in general. They don't have a lot of elite offensive talent by any stretch, that Zellweger might cap out at like a 45-point player. And if that's not worthwhile in your league, then certainly you don't have to roster Zellweger. But I'm chasing these underlying stats. They've looked good all season long. He's been consistent with them. He's been consistent with top power play. As long as he's on top power play, I'm going to be pretty interested in Zellweger. That being said, I did drop Zellweger in some spots, just with the situation for Anaheim this week, where they're not playing till Wednesday. They play Wednesday, Friday off nights. Again, a situation where you drop him on Monday and he comes off waivers on Wednesday. If you want him back, you can add him back. But it's hard to stomach taking two games off at the beginning and the end of the week for a player like this. So I did drop him in some places where I just needed to get some more games played on the board, and there were valuable players to be had. So don't think you have to roster Zellweger at all times, but in terms of am I still excited about the player? Yes, absolutely I am. Noah Dobson, interesting one here. 2 assists his last 5, 22.5 minutes average time on ice. Got sat by Patrick Waugh last 6 minutes or so of game there, the latest game. 28 shots per 60, 157th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 60th Corsi 4 per 60, 43rd on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Yeah, it has not been great for Noah Dobson, to say the absolute least, in the early going. Got to be affecting his confidence even a little bit at this point. Tough look at this point for sure for Noah Dobson. That being said, I don't know how low you can buy low on him, but definitely I'm interested in doing that. He skated just 17:53 in this game, but all the previous games he was over 23 minutes. The least amount of ice time in the past, like, what are we looking at here? Going back to October 17th, the least amount of ice time in the games prior to this one was 22:37. So still getting plenty of ice time. I would definitely try to buy low on Noah Dobson if I could. All right. I need to drink of water and a cough, and then we'll get back into the comments here. All right, we're back. This is going to be terrific audio for the podcast listeners. I do apologize. I thought it was better to play hurt than to not play at all, as it were. Jared Spurgeon. Oh, yeah, I was going to leave that. Let's get into comments. Let's do that. Brad's asks, who's my next drop? Points only, 17 team, 16 player roster. Slag, I'm going to guess that's Slavkovsky, JJ Peterka, or William Karlsson. It's an interesting question. I think it's definitely Karlsson for me. Yeah, it's Karlsson for me. Karlsson might outproduce Slavkovsky for the next little bit, but I think if we're talking about the rest of the season, I think I'm going drop Karlsson and hang on to Slavkovsky. Zach says, thoughts on Philip Forsberg rest of the season? Forsberg is on the list. I'm 99% sure he's on the list. Yeah, he is. We'll get there. Tofutomo, I'm considering dropping Tippett at this point in my Cats League. Shooting volume is rough. He isn't hitting much, and ice time is low. Yeah, I think that's fine. Tippett was up and down last year, too, and I don't think you can realistically expect a whole lot different from anybody on a John Tortorella-led team. There's Brad clarifying the Slag versus Slav. Michael says Zach Werenski going insane. Columbus has been scoring 5+ goals in their last 6 games, except for the Habs match. What's your opinion on the Columbus situation? We expecting a cool down? Yeah, I mean, for sure it's going to cool down. They're not going to score, 6 goals a game just for the rest of time. That being said, Dean Evison has them playing really good hockey. They're generating. They're not just getting lucky. So yeah, I think they can score goals, but they're probably realistically on the season a bit more of a middle of the pack scoring team than they are like a high end scoring team. Jordan says, "Hey Nate, could you talk about McCann if he isn't on the list? He is on the list a little bit further down, but we will get to Jared McCann." Last one's Paterka needs better shot selection. He should be back. Of his 123 shot attempts, 43 are blocked. Yep, that'll do it. Jordan, do you mean McCann? Brutal coaching, can't blame player. I mean, that could be considered part of it for sure. Michael says it's 4-0 now in the Rangers Devils game. I look away for a minute. 4-1 now. Kreider scored. Interesting. What else do we get here? Got Dougie Hamilton on the power play from Hughes and Bratt. We got Hughes from Hughes and Bratt. Bratt, another huge game. That helps me out actually in the Content Creators League. I got Bratt, so that's good stuff there. That's a lot of points in the Content Creators League. 18.4 fantasy points in this league for the goal and a couple assists from Jesper Bratt. Love to see it. All right. Cue a trade or coaching change in New York. Yeah, you got to think they're going to try something at this point. They've been vocal about it. Like, they still have a winning record, which is kind of the weird part. Like, I don't know why this kind of stuff got out, why they let it get out, why they didn't just, say, hey, we need to be better internally, and why it all got out in the media and stuff. Kind of weird. Feels like, yeah, there's maybe more to see than what we're learning about anyway. All right, back to the list we go. Jared Spurgeon, 3 goals, 4 points in his last 5, 21 minutes a night. 30th shots per 60, 26th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 23rd on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, 56th on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60, and crucially, getting on the top power play in Minnesota in the last game and getting a power play assist. Good stuff for Jared Spurgeon, no doubt. Metrics look pretty good on the season so far. He's played 18 games. He's got 10 points. That's a 14-goal, 45-point pace. Underlying metrics looking pretty standard for Jared Spurgeon, to be honest. And yeah, if he gets power play 1, you could reasonably hope for a little bit more. Yeah, I think there's a chance here. Spurgeon has been one of these guys where he's never been like super effective on the power play. He's never been like a difference maker, I guess you would say. He's been efficient. He's scored goals at a pretty good clip, like double-digit goals in a lot of his seasons. That's always been there, or not always, but consistently been there for a lot of his career. He's dealt with injuries a lot in the last few seasons. So yeah, I'm into Spurgeon for the time being. I mean, how can you not enjoy the potential exposure to Kaprizov and Boldy and these guys? You got to be into that. So I think that's a good spot. Matthews is absolutely giving it to the ref after taking a penalty here. That's hilarious. He went at this. Oh, yeah. Nice stuff. Good battles in front, and he gets the only call. Love it. Matthews is fired up. Okay, let's move on. Dmitry Voronkov. We talked a little bit about Voronkov, so I don't need to rehash that, I don't think. He's got 7 points his last 5. 16, roughly 16-15 average time on ice here. Underlying metrics are okay. I would say okay to good. Underlying metrics here. Obviously getting the top line, top power play exposure in Columbus, and that's good stuff. So, yeah, I think that's basically what you're hoping for with Voronkov. As long as he's in that position, I'm into it. When he's not in that position anymore, I'm kind of off it. So that's it. Justin Falk, 2 assists his last 5 games, 23 minutes average time on ice, 59 shots per 60, 52nd individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 82nd Corsi, 4 per 60, and 37th. I thought I was looking at the wrong line there for a minute. 37th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. I still kind of like Falk. I know it's been a long time, and sometimes you get into this, right? Like, I'm not saying you have to roster Falk when things are not going well, but if you're asking my opinion, is he, likely to do well in the next game? Based on what I'm seeing, yeah, I think it's pretty likely that he's going to do well in the next game. He's still top power play. As long as he's top power play, and like it's a real top power play. He in the last game had 14:33 power play time on ice and 102 for Philip Broberg, according here to Frozen Tools. So yeah, I think that's a pretty clear sign. He's still the top power play guy under Jim Montgomery. That didn't really change. Underlying metrics look fine. They got Rob Thomas back. They should be scoring more points, more goals, I should say. And Justin Falk should be scoring more points as a result. Is he going to be amazing? Probably not. But is he going to be good enough to roster? Absolutely, I think he will be. Jake Neighbors, obviously teammate there in St. Louis, 2 goals, 3 points in his last 5. 16 minutes, 45 seconds, average time on ice over the last 5. 54th shots per 60, 28th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 57th on ice Corsi, 4 per 60. 22nd on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Good stuff from Jake Neighbors in the last little bit. On the season, it hasn't been quite so good, like 26 goal, 39 point pace. And yeah, that part's a little bit hard to figure out for me. Is he going to now sustain this higher level, or is he just in a hot stretch right now? And I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. He kind of did this last year too, where he had a hot stretch and I was starting to get pretty excited about him, and then it kind of fell off and never came back. And so that is a problem for me for sure. I guess my takeaway on Neighbors is I would like to stream him when available, but I wouldn't feel bad about dropping him, especially if these metrics start to dip down again anytime soon. So I think that's my takeaway there. Next up, Bo Horvat, 3 assists in his last 5, 20 minutes and 30 seconds average time on ice, 56th in shots per 60, 118th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 24th in on-ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and 26th in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Yeah, the underlying metrics actually look not too bad for Bo Horvat, but definitely he and the Isles have been struggling to actually find the net. It'll definitely come back. Like, he's got a 6.8% shooting percentage on the season, 9.4% on ice shooting percentage. That's not real. That'll come back, but also like they're hurting without Matt Barzal there, and that does, cause some effect. I ended up dropping Bo Horvat in the Content Creators League last week when I needed to make a move there. I don't feel too bad about it. I ended up picking up Nazem Kadri this week, who's dropped, and I feel like Kadri is probably an equal or better player to Bo Horvat in basically every way. And so, yeah, it's just a league where I always feel like I'm going to be able to pick up somebody like that. And so, yeah, if that's your situation, your league, which probably is for some of you, especially as a center-only player, if you don't have face-offs, then I don't think you have to hang on to Bo Horvat through this stretch. But that being said, like, the underlying metrics do look pretty good here. Do think he'll break through to some extent. It's just really a matter of how high is the ceiling, and is there anybody else available to you, that might be hotter at the moment and might also have a similar rest of season outlook. ACC Asphalt or Spurgeon. I would go Spurgeon there at the moment. Neither of these guys are probably going to win you your season. I think Spurgeon, you want to see if he can sustain just being hot at the moment alongside Kaprizov and Boldy on the top power play. Yeah, that's what I want to see. David Lacroix, thoughts on M. Celebrini? Is he worth picking up? Absolutely. Yeah, he's hot right now. Everything's looking good under the hood. Go ahead and pick up Celebrini. I think that's good stuff. Thoughts on Werenski's hot streak? How do his metrics look like? For sure, we could throw that in here. Anytime I get a chance to talk about Zach Werenski, I'll absolutely do so. He's got 12 points in his last 5 games. Unreal stuff. 27 minutes average time on ice. 4th amongst all defensemen. Shots per 60 at 27 minutes. Average time on ice. 4th in shots per 60. Ridiculous. 9th in individual scoring chances. 4 per 60. On ice metrics. 34th in on ice Corsi for per 60, 40th on ice scoring chances for per 60. On the season, 28 goal, 93 point pace for Zach Werenski, 26 minutes a night, third in shots per 66, individual scoring chances for per 60. This is just what Zach Werenski does. He's that good. Now the team around him is performing and he's reaping all the benefits. 63% IPP stands out. That's not real. But that being said, the rest of it, I kind of don't doubt that much. Yeah, he could have like a 25 goal season this year, and I wouldn't be too shocked. Yeah, a 70 plus point pace rest of season doesn't feel too crazy in this iteration of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Definitely 93, not going to happen, but yeah, 70 plus I think could be within the wheelhouse for Zach Werenski. All right, one last comment here, and then we'll get back into the list. Do you think Jeek will stay hot for this little stretch? It's been tough. Let's see what we got here for Joel Eriksson Ek. And bring it back over to the last 5 games. 5 assists in 5 games, 22 minutes a night, underlying metrics in the 100s. Basically nothing to write home about there, but 22 minutes a night will get the job done. Yeah, he's definitely run cold on the IPP. On a shooting percentage is still pretty hot. Shooting percentage a little low, even for Jeek. Yeah, I don't think he's going to do what he did last year. I'm curious actually now what my projection for Joel Eriksson Ek was at the start of the season. I had him for 30 goals and 67 points. 11% shooting percentage. The shots have fallen off a little bit, which is a little bit concerning for Jeek, that he hasn't been able to replicate that from last year. But if he's going to skate 22 minutes a night, then for sure he's going to be able to put up some production. Yeah, I guess I would say, yeah, in the 30 goal range, in the 65 point range is still roughly my expectation for Joel Eriksson Ek. But yeah, I think it's worth understanding that he's not the player who, causes things to happen. He's definitely a player who's just getting the benefits of playing alongside great players like Boldy and Kaprizov right now. I lied. There's one more comment that I'm going to hit before we get back to it. SK93 is Frank Vatrano buy low right now. I mean, the guy had 2 goals and an assist yesterday. I don't think he's a buy low anymore. But yeah, if you can go grab Frank Vatrano, he's absolutely cooking right now. I'd love to have him on any squad. All right, back to the list. We got to get through it. Tage Thompson, in the 3 games since returning from injury, no points. Skating over 20.5 minutes a night, 4th in the league in shots per 60, 2nd in shot attempts per 60, 3rd in on-ice Corsi for per 60, and 34th in on-ice scoring chances for per 60. Still not generating individual scoring chances for, and that is a concern for me with Thompson at the moment. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a trend for Thompson going back to last year where the scoring chances have lagged the shots just a little bit. It feels like he's just not selecting the most dangerous shots the way he did in his huge breakout year. That being said, I still got a big old projection on Tage Thompson rest of season. He's got a 48 goal, 78 point pace right now. That's with 18.5 minutes time on ice. Seems like that's ticking up at the moment. So that's a good sign. All the underlying metrics look right in line. Don't question any of them. So yeah, overall point per game, 45 goal. Tage Thompson seems like a pretty good place to be with potential for even more. Carter Verhaeghe has 3 goals, 7 points in his last 5 games, 17 minutes a night. Underlying metrics are not that hot, like 245th in individual scoring chances for per 60. It's obviously not the craziest number that Verhaeghe's ever posted. Actually, earlier on this season, he had really, really good stuff going there. And the Florida Panthers are trying all sorts of stuff on the power play, including Mackie Simiskevich on the top power play over Verhaeghe or Bennett. Yeah, that's a new one. But I think Verhaeghe, he's done really well for years there at this point, even without top power play. Do we want top power play for Verhaeghe? Obviously, that's going to be better for him. Does he need it to be fantasy relevant, fantasy viable? Absolutely not. He had a really tough start to this year, was totally snake bitten. Now on pace for 23 goals, 65 points. His metrics on the season still look low. They'll come up even more. He'll start to score more. Yeah, it's all gonna come together even more for Verhaeghe. This 7 points in the last 5 games is just a little indication of that in my mind. Steven Stamkos, a goal, 3 points in his last 5. And we can marry this conversation with Philip Forsberg right there. 1 goal, 1 assist, and 2 points in Forsberg's last 5 here. Forsberg getting 20 minutes a night. Stamkos just under 18. 148th in shots per 60, 158th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 for 127th in shots per 60, and 139th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 for Forsberg. But Forsberg is shooting, or trying to shoot, 9th in shot attempts per 60. So that's still there. 13th in on-ice shot attempts per 60 for Forsberg, 64th for Stamkos. Yeah, weird stuff going on in Nashville this year. I still can't quite figure out what that is. Forsberg is actually first in the league on the season in individual shot attempts per 60. And on the season, the metrics look really good. Been completely snake bitten. 52% IPP for Forsberg, 59% for Stamkos. Like, even when pucks do go in, and they have not been going in for Nashville much this year, these two guys are just like not getting in on it, which makes no sense because they are the ones like shooting it. Yeah, it's just a really kind of weird situation all around. And I would consider both these guys to be buy lows. Obviously, I'd rather have Forsberg than Stamkos. I think that would be not a hot take at all. But yeah, I would consider this a really good time to try to buy low on Philip Forsberg if people are trying to doubt him. That doesn't make any sense to me. The metrics are not like out of this world at this exact moment, this last 5 game stretch, but they're very good on the season. And the shot attempts are still there. He just hasn't quite been getting them on net and getting to the most dangerous areas in this last stretch. But that's not worrying to me just yet. Scott Wedgwood was also questioned in the Discord server, and I want to get this right. The question was, I got to find it back now. Oh, this is going to be terrible podcasting as I just scroll through all the questions to find the one about Scott Wedgwood. Who thought we'd be talking about Scott Wedgwood this year? You said he's a career backup. Isn't Georgiev as well? Pretty conclusively, Georgiev's not a career backup. I mean, he's been the starter in Colorado for 2 years now. One of those was really good. One of those was really bad. This year has been more bad than good. But yeah, I mean, Wedgwood has never had anything close to the amount of start time that Georgiev has had. So yeah, I'm not really interested in Scott Wedgwood at all unless Georgiev really fumbles the ball again, then sure. But until then, I'm just watching. Yeah, is it possible that Georgiev does fumble the ball and Wedgwood gets a run of starts and he's valuable for fantasy? Absolutely. But I have to see it to really get into it. Kent Johnson has 4 goals, 7 points in his last 5 games. Average time on ice, just over 17.5 minutes. Top power play there. 145th shots per 60, 291st individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 184 on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, 205 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. On the season, he is pacing in the 9 games he has played. He has 12 points, so he's pacing for 55 goals, 109 points. Terrific stuff. And Toronto just scored. Nice. 2-0 Toronto now. Yeah, this is my problem with Johnson, like being like over the moon excited about Johnson. Such a small sample size, much smaller than the other Columbus forwards who have done this for a little bit longer at this point. Wow, that was an interesting one to go in. Tavares just like hooked it at the net, and I don't know if it hit Holmberg or somebody in front, and then just went in. He just like spun and hooked it on net. I think it hit Murphy in front and then deflected in maybe. Interesting. All right. John Tavares getting it done again. Yeah, interesting spot for Kent Johnson because, yeah, he has played very well. The underlying stats have never looked good on Johnson for me. For most of the stuff that we like in fantasy, especially shots and stuff like that. That's the part that's hard to accept for me personally. Um, I guess I guess what I'd say about Kent Johnson is the the top power play is really crucial. He has to have that for him to have sustained relevance. And even then, I'm not convinced that he's much more than a streamer rest of season. But with how hot he's been in the early going here, I am willing to grab him up now, run with it for now. Columbus has this great week this week, so it makes sense to do it now. Let's see how far it goes. And yeah, try to stay in the flames here with Kent Johnson and see if the underlying metrics he can start to, can he really start to elevate a line on his own? That's kind of the next step, I guess, for Kent Johnson that I'd like to see. And I think it's possible, right? Like, I think everybody knows how highly I view Adam Fantilli. He's also had a tough start to the season. If both of these guys can start to elevate their games together at 5v5, I think that would be a huge step for both of them. And I think that's very possible. I just haven't seen it yet in the numbers, and that's kind of why I'm dithering a little bit on Kent Johnson at this point. All right, let's get back to the comments. Liam, would you buy Matt Tkachuk for Ehlers and Dobson in a Banger Cats league? Yeah, I think I might. In Bangers Cats especially, yeah, I think I would go ahead and grab Matt Tkachuk there. What's your thought on this trade? Troy Terry and Tyler Toffoli for Slavkovsky. I think I'd take the Troy Terry side there. Jack Hughes and Dougie going off tonight. Did they get another one? Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Dougie Hamilton. Love to see it. Oh yeah, I think I have Dougie. Yeah, I have Dougie in the Content Creators League too. So I got 4 points from Bratt and I got 2 points from Dougie. That's a good start for me there. Love to see it. Yeah, that's gonna be a tough look for the Rangers after this game for sure, especially against the Devils, team that they try to get up for. Another assist for Bratt. Lake Effect, points league with slight weight for Pims, Sharon Govich for Toronto, or the Jerk Store rest of season. Rest of season, wow, that is a tough one, but I think I go Sharon Govich. Feel pretty good about the role there that they have for Yegor Sharangovich. He's played like 19 minutes a night pretty consistently. I think he's good enough. He's in the early going here. His underlying metrics are the best of his career. And so you have to be a little bit excited about what that can mean for him. If he's able to sustain it over a longer period, maybe he will, maybe he won't, but it's a good sign. It has to be a good sign at this point. Hidden in plain sight, thoughts on holding McTavish and Cupful scoring. Anaheim has a great schedule, lots of games upcoming and on off nights. I don't think that McTavish is in like a hold category for me. Yeah, just one assist his last 5, under 16 minutes. Underlying metrics, nothing to write home about. They're not good. Yeah, I don't think you need to hold McTavish. Is his spot better for streamer? I would say so, yes. Jordan, how are Wyatt and Nichushkin's metrics looking like? We can throw that in for a moment. Wyatt Johnston and Valeri Nichushkin. Wyatt Johnston has 5 points his last 5. Nichushkin has 6. Both gaining big minutes. Johnston almost 19.5. Nichushkin over 20.5. Yeah, I'd say Johnston, this is probably the worst stretch of his season so far. Yeah, it's less than his season-long numbers, but he's got more points than the last little bit. So take that for what it's worth. Still 92nd in shots per 60, 68th individual scoring chances for per 60. So good numbers, just not as good as they have been. Nichushkin 194th in shots per 60, but 26th in individual scoring chances for per 60. Similar stuff going on with the on-ice stuff there. Yeah, I think you got to get excited about Nichushkin finding his footing so quickly here. That was the big question with Nichushkin. But yeah, I mean, if he's going to be top power play, 75-point Nichushkin, yeah, I think you can reasonably expect 75-point Nichushkin from this point forward. Wyatt Johnston, I think I would go back to my original projection on Johnston and feel like pretty good about it. 33 goals, 76-point pace. That was on 18.5 minutes projected time on ice on the season. He's a little bit higher than that. Last 5 games, he's above 19, so maybe he gets even a little bit more. Yeah, I'm still in for 70-point Wyatt Johnston from this point onward. Bizon, Velarde, what say you? Velarde has been a tough one for me this year. I was pretty excited about this player. Just one goal in those last five. Still 19 minutes, still getting all the deployment, but the metrics have been pretty horrible. Um, 30 goal, 56 point pace. Like, I think that's actually probably not that far from what I had him for. 36 goal, 58 point pace. So, yeah, not that far off, honestly, what I had him for to start the year. But it's the lack of shots and the underlying metrics not looking good that has me concerned. I think he can turn it around, but yeah, it is a weird spot where it seems like he's really relying on the other guys to do all the the legwork and then just trying to bang in some pucks here and there, and it's not really been working out in the early going, or at least in the last 5 games. It's been okay, 30 goal pace, nothing to sneeze at for sure, but yeah, tough look the last 5 games. As long as he's getting the minutes, he's just really hard to walk away from, right? That's the biggest problem that I'm having right now. 12 team league, like maybe depending on your league, there's other players out there with similar deployment that are hotter right now, and you could feel okay about dropping Velarde. Anything deeper, you're probably hanging on to him for sure. Michael says another point for Brat. Yep, we got that. PB Stars, Nate, thanks for all you do. Does Claire fit in your lineup when he's healthy? What's your prediction on Ross Colton's deployment? I'm going to leave Ross Colton for the very end here. I've got him queued up. But Anthony Duclair, yeah, I've got time for Anthony Duclair. I think that's also been a part of what the Islanders expected to have in their forward core that they haven't been able to have here so far. Yeah, I think he'll go right into a pretty high-end offensive role for the Islanders, and it really depends how fast he can get back up to speed. Right, that's something that is a little bit hard to predict, but yeah. Question on Nichushkin, or I'm gonna guess that was supposed to be Lehkonen. I definitively take Nichushkin there. Okay, back to the list. We're getting towards the end here. Jared McCann, 1 goal, 2 points in his last 5, almost 20 minutes a night, which is really good stuff. That's what we were hoping for, obviously, for Jared McCann. 36 shots per 60, 46th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 91st Corsi, 4 per 60, 75th on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Underlying metrics looking good. 33 goals, 75 point pace. 79% IPP, 15.4% shooting percentage, 12.5% on ice shooting percentage. I think this is pretty close to where I had Jared McCann pegged on the season. On the season, 17:45 average time on ice. I had him for 18 minutes, and I had him at 34 goals, 76 points. So yeah, this is pretty much exactly what I thought Jared McCann would and could be under a new coach. If he's going to get this kind of minutes, though, like if he's actually going to get 20 minutes average time on ice from here on out, I don't know how likely that is. You can make your own guesses about that. But if that's a real thing for Jared McCann, then I'm going to get really excited about what his high end potential would be. So maybe it's time to go buy low on McCann. If people are thinking that he's not doing anything, he definitely is. Under the hood, it looks really good. On the season, the pace is pretty much exactly what I thought it would be. The time, the projection is pretty much bang on for his paces right now. But if he's going to get more time on ice, then we should be more excited about Jared McCann. Emil Andre, 1 goal, 1 point in his last 5, 21 minutes a night. That part has been nice, but it's, another situation in which Tortorella's been playing around, and it looks like Sanheim's been getting more run on the power play. Tough look, basically. Tough look just to be somebody trying to roster a Philadelphia Flyers player in the year of our Lord 2024 under John Tortorella. Yeah, what can you really say? We talked about, Blake and I talked about Joel Farabee and how he's had a really nice run under the hood, even though he hasn't been able to put any points together, and how it's just never going to matter because it's John Tortorella at the end of the day, and John Tortorella does what John Tortorella wants. It's just a spot where you can't have any kind of consistency, any kind of trust moving forward on what that deployment might look like. So, yeah, that being said, looks like Andre did come out with the Konechny Michkov top unit in the second period. I'm just going to try to see here if Sanheim like replaced him later on or what exactly happened there, because that obviously makes a pretty big difference. It looks like Sanheim came on here, came out with the second unit, stayed on when the other unit came on for a bit, and Andre was out with the top unit. And then later on, this was later on, yeah, later on, he came out with the top unit, spent 40 seconds, and Sanheim just ended up with more time on ice. Yeah, I think it's just a situation where Sanheim happened to get some extra time. So I think it is still Andre most likely going to get top power play in the next game. Maybe your guess is better than mine on that. But yeah, that's where I'm at on Andre. Just the situation with the power play one, but underlying metrics have fallen off. They were really good. Now they're falling off a little bit from where they were. But still time on ice there, still top power play at the moment, unless we see something different. I haven't actually double checked to see if there are any new power play lines. No, nothing there on power play lines in practice. So yeah, I'm losing my sheet here. But yeah, if there's power play one, I am interested in Andre. If there's not, I'm not. That's basically the whole story going on in Philadelphia. Brock Faber, what do we do with Brock Faber now? If Spurgeon's going to take top power play, they had also tried, other guys there. They have David Jiricek coming to town now. What's going to be the situation? Faber is just under 25 minutes a night over the last 5, 2 points, 1 goal, 1 assist. 104th shots per 60, 59th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 81st on ice Corsi 4 per 60, 61st on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Yeah, it's going to be tough for Brock Faber to sustain a lot of fantasy relevance if he's not going to be on the top power play, in my opinion. I don't think he's a player who, necessarily commands offense or generates it himself. Can he facilitate it? Yes, but does he generate it? I don't think so, at least not at this stage of his career. You go back to his college numbers, they're not like insane like some of these other more well-known offensive defensemen. That's my take on Brock Faber, and I haven't really seen a reason that I need to move off it at this point. So yeah, I think that I don't know that you have to hold Brock Faber if it looks like they're not going to go back to him as a power play one quarterback. If he is power play one quarterback, you're going to want him because he's going to be skating 25 plus minutes a night with power play exposure to Kaprizov and Boldy. If it's only 5v5 exposure to those guys, then it's obviously much less exciting. So I would preach a little bit of caution, like hang on and see how this latest run goes with Spurgeon and what they decide to do in the next little bit here. But do I think that you have to hang on to Brock Faber? Absolutely not. Tom Wilson, 3 goals, 5 points in his last 5, over 18 minutes a night, 76 shots per 60, 108 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 29th Corsi, 4 per 60, 31st in on-ice scoring chances, 4. Yeah, I think that Tom Wilson is having a nice little season. I was kind of surprised when I did my projection on him, how decent it came out for him. 28 goal, 51 point projection at the beginning of the season. Yeah, I had him for just under 19 minutes average time on ice. He's a little bit under that, but pretty close in terms of the average time on ice on the season. Yeah, overall, probably not going to hit this 65 point pace that he's on right now, but I do think that he should end up decently close to my projection here. So I like what I'm seeing from Tom Wilson. It's obviously been a wheels up for the Capitals in general and what they've been able to produce offensively this year. He's on the top power play. He's been pretty much a fixture there, which has been a really nice feature for Tom Wilson this year. Yeah, I'm pretty into what Tom Wilson brings, especially if you got any kind of bangers waiting in your league. Sam Bennett, 3 goals, 5 points in his last 5, 18 minutes, average time on ice, 27 shots per 60, 127 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 117 on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and 165 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. As I mentioned, bounced off the top power play in favor of Mackie Simiskevich in the last game. He was centering Verhaeghe and Kachuk. Good place to be at even strength. He's on pace for 41 goals, 79 points. That's not real. He's never sustained this kind of crazy IPP shooting percentage. Um, you know, none of that is going to sustain all year long for sure. Probably a sell high if you can get someone to kind of buy high on him. I had him for a 26 goal, 52 point season at the beginning of the year, and I don't have, like, he's getting a little bit more ice time, a little bit more chance that he gets some power play time, I guess. But realistically, I don't have much reason to generate a much higher projection on him at this point. He's always been a big time shot producer. He's just never been efficient. So far, he's being very efficient, and it feels really unlikely that that'll continue to be true for the rest of the season. All right, let's get back to the comments before I get to Mr. Ross Colton. And we start here. Speaking of Islanders, thoughts on Holmstrom? I'm not into Holmstrom. I haven't seen it at any point, really. Underlying metrics, not good. Yeah, had a nice little streak, but I'm not into Simon Holmstrom. How's Kadri looking? Seems to be heating up. We could throw Nazem Kadri in for a second. I looked at it for myself not that long ago. Obviously, the 5 points, last 5 games, 18 minutes, average time on ice. 40th shots per 60, 67th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. Individual numbers look good with Kadri. Been putting up points in the last little bit. I think he's on his way to doing something better. I just wish that Calgary would not be splitting up power play units and messing with the lines as much as they are. I wish they'd give Kadri some of these good players to play with, power play and even strength. That's the only caveat with Kadri. Otherwise, I think he's a terrific player and underrated one across the league that can definitely provide a lot of value for fantasy. Had him for 29 goals, 71 points at the start of the season. Not going to be that far off that, but yeah, just the current iteration of the power play units being split up has me digging that ceiling just a little bit. Chichi Mini, Vilardi, or Peterka rest of season. Give me Peterka there. Jordan's thoughts on selling high on Natchez for Forsberg. How much regression is in store for Natchez? It's a gutsy move for sure. I think I would take Forsberg rest of season. Yeah, I would take Forsberg rest of season. It's a gutsy move. It's a tough one to make. You might even be able to get more for Natchez, but yeah, I think I would make that one. Jordan Nelson, his favorite, kind of like a Forsling type, or who would you compare him to? Forsling is a decent comparison. I think Forsling honestly may have more offensive upside than Brock Faber does. It's just totally untapped because that's not his role in Florida. Trying to think of somebody else across the league that might be a good comparison. Coming up a little bit blank here. But yeah, just kind of a player who is really valuable playing big minutes, maybe more like Devin Taves. Taves has had, a season or two with big offensive numbers, but obviously playing in Colorado has helped that for Taves as well. Yeah, kind of in that vein though. Also, do you have any thoughts on Tom Wilson potentially making Team Canada for Four Nations face-off? Have we gotten the announcement on that yet? I thought that had to come out today. Did I misread that? It's entirely possible. It wouldn't be the first time. But either way, Tom Wilson, I mean, the problem with any kind of tournament like this is that you have such ridiculous amounts of skill available to you that you sometimes end up with no role players, and sometimes that's not a good thing. And so from that perspective, I can see it. Tom Wilson will absolutely bring something to the lineup that other teams will hate to play against, and that has some value for sure. Can you maybe get something similar to that from like a Travis Konechny instead? Maybe. So, and Konechny probably has a little bit more offensive juice. So that would be the only potential thing you might want to think about if you're making the big shot decisions for Team Canada. Bennett or Jeek, Banger Cats League. That is a tough one. I think I would take Jeek, but it's definitely a good question. Would you accept Hischier or Meyer for Werenski? Mostly points league, but with shots on goals, hits, blocks. That is tough. Very, very tough, actually. Hischier or Meyer for Werenski. I'm inclined to say no. I guess if you have like a lot of other defensemen, you could. Um, but I'm inclined to just keep rolling with Werenski. Everything looks so good under the hood. Um, yeah, I'm inclined to say no, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, I wouldn't hate on anyone making that move either. It does feel like maybe locking in some higher value for your team rest of the season, but yeah. Michael, I gave some thoughts on Nichushkin, so just scroll back maybe 10 or 15 minutes and you'll get them. Jordan, who would you bench tomorrow out of Rust versus Florida, McCann versus Carolina, and Nichushkin versus Buffalo? I'm probably benching Rust there. Appreciate your help, no problem. You could aim higher than Heischer and Meyer for Werenski. I kind of tend to think so as well. Armin's in here. Appreciate you stopping by. All right, last order of business. We got to talk about Ross Colton. The man, the myth, the legend, my one and only Ross Colton. Yeah, so this is a situation that's like, it's going to be nearly impossible to guess what he's going to come right back into. I think there's a decent chance that they do actually put him in the top 6. Right now, Nikolai Kovalenko's in there. Obviously, we know Jonathan Drouin's out. So with if Drouin had been healthy, my guess probably would have been that he goes back to being 3C. With Drouin out, I wonder if they wouldn't want to keep the top 6 loaded up. You know, Jared Bednar loves to play the absolute heck out of his top 6 anyway, and so having Colton, who gave him the stretch that he did earlier, having him in the top 6 for that reason alone might make some sense. I could definitely see that. I have a less faith that he's going to be back on top power play, especially with Nichushkin playing well. If Middlestat does come off, then I could see it. That's a possibility for sure. I think they like Middlestat for the faceoffs on that top power play, and that's probably why he's stuck there as long as he has with little to no production. So yeah, I'm doubting on the top power play for Ross Colton when he comes back, but I do think he'll be top 6. Depending on your league, that may or may not be rosterable for you. Probably more like if that's the case where he ends up, alongside Middlestat, then yeah, maybe that's like a 55-point pace kind of situation where he's top 6, but power play 2. If he's on the top line, with McKinnon and Rantanen, gets back in that spot, which Lehkonen is in right now, then maybe you could see a little bit more of a ceiling for him in terms of the point scoring. 60-point ceiling, maybe 65 if everything goes really well. But yeah, without top power play, he's definitely not going to, come close to the heights that we had for him in the early going here. It's just a shame because that was so much fun in the early going for Ross Colton and being big into that. So anyway, I think that's where we're going to leave this one. I will answer Armin's question here. Would you drop Chabot or Falk for Taves? No, I don't think I would for your situation there. You could drop Chabot. It's probably a wash. Yeah, I guess you could. Chris says, Nate, Ross Colton, my one and only. Blake, what am I to you? It's a great question. It's a great question. Just a best friend. In Cats with wins and save percentage would be the third best goalie. Samsonov, Vejmelka, Mrazek, Samsonov for sure for me there. Oh, third best goalie? Best third goalie. Sorry, I thought it was the best, the worst of those 3 goalies. So I would rank it, I guess, Mrazek, Vejmelka, Samsonov. All right. That is going to be all that I've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value and not just some sniffles, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today, you see today on the screen, came from Natural Stat Trick. Terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band They're There for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.